Here, push. Okay, push that all the way up, and you go test.
Test. Perfect.
There you go. Thank you.
Alrighty. Thanks, Doug, for inviting us here today to talk on the I-15. Oh, sorry. Can everyone hear me okay? Anyway, so thank you everyone for being here tonight. My name is Jake Nyman. Up here with me is Karen Hiatt, our Assistant District Engineer, and Sky Buffat, um, our Public Relations Officer. We are here on behalf of the Idaho Transportation Department to speak to you today about the I-15 US20 Connector project. Let's see if it'll... Perfect. For this presentation, I'm going to touch on the following topics: the project background, the planning and environmental linkages study, the interim project at exit 119, the environmental impact statement, EIS is what we say for short, each alternative being evaluated in the EIS, next steps within the EIS study, and then we'll end the presentation with a question and answer session. I'd ask that you hold off on any questions while I do the presentation. It'll be about a 15-minute presentation. And like I said, we'll take any questions and try to answer them to the best of our abilities at the end of the presentation. So this map here shows the project study area. The study area is generally a 500-foot buffer around the I-15 alignment from approximately Pancary Drive to the south and to the north near West 65th North. I have a laser. We'll try to, they said it doesn't, so Pancary Drive is right around here, and then the H2 alignment is up north of the airport. The Idaho Falls airport's right there. In the black outline here, you can see the E3 alternative, and then this white and black checkered is the H2 alignment. Project background: ITD, the City of Idaho Falls, Bonneville County, and the BMPO worked together to plan for the future by studying potential improvements to the I-15 and US20 interchange. Constructed in the 1950s and 60s, the I-15 and US20 interchanges in Idaho Falls are not expected to provide adequate safety, mobility, and economic opportunity in the city, county, region given the anticipated future growth. ITD completed a planning and environmental linkages study in late 2020. What is a PEL? Planning and environmental linkages study, we call it PEL for short. A PEL is a collaborative and integrated approach to transportation decision making. The study considers environmental, community, and economic goals and impacts early in the transportation process, planning process. We use the information, analysis, and products developed during planning to inform the subsequent environmental review process. ITD conducted a PEL study from 2018 to 2020 for this project. The process of a PEL involves 3 levels of screening. Level 1 screening is when initial concepts or ideas are developed based on the project's purpose and need and undergo a first pass of screening criteria to eliminate fatal flaws and unreasonable alternatives. Level 2 screening, alternatives advanced from Level 1 are further refined, often combined, and undergo a more detailed comparison using technical data and community feedback. Level 3 screening is where a small set of the most promising alternatives are analyzed in a greater detail to make the final recommendations for which options will move forward into the National Environmental Policy Act, also known as the NEPA process. For the I-15 US20 Connector PEL, Level 1 screening reviewed 14 alternatives developed during the Universe of Alternatives brainstorming. Of those 14 alternatives, 9 action alternatives were recommended to advance to the Level 2 screening, 1 no action, 4 on alignment, and 5 new alignments. The Level 1 alternative and the results from the screening were presented to the public at a public meeting held in September of 2018. Level 3 evaluated 4 alternatives that advanced from Level 2. Of those 4 alternatives, 2 were recommended for the NEPA process: Alternative H2, E3, and a no-build action. The Pell study identified an immediate need for an interim project with independent utility at I-15 exit 119, also known as Grandview Drive. Independent utility means that a proposed project or a portion of a larger project must be able to function as a standalone improvement and be a reasonable expenditure of funds, even if other anticipated transportation improvements in the area are not built. The interim project constructed an additional right turn lane on the northbound off-ramp, as well as an underpass under the northbound off-ramp for pedestrians and bicyclists. Construction was completed in 2022. Though this helps some of the traffic backing up onto I-15 during peak times, it is not a permanent fix with the forecasted future travel demand. There are 4 sections in an EIS report. Section 1 introduces the proposed action and its purpose and need. Section 2 describes the affected environment. Section 3 presents a range of alternatives, and Section 4 analyzes the environmental impacts of each proposed alternative. ITD considers impacts to the following environmental resources: cultural resources, recreational and public land use, transportation resources, traffic noise, hazardous materials, air quality, social and economic conditions, and visual resources. We also consider impacts to the following natural resources: water quality, surface water, and floodplains, aquatic resources, farmlands, soils, and geology, as well as biological resources. As you can see from the last 2 slides, there is a great level of analysis performed in an EIS. It's a long process to complete. What is a purpose and need, and why do we use it? Purpose, the solution/goal, is the identified deficiency, problem, or unsatisfactory condition in the existing transportation system. Need, the problem, is the identified deficiency, problem, or unsatisfactory condition in the existing transportation system. Purpose and need is a foundation for planning, guiding, and development of solutions, evaluating alternatives, and ensuring the project meets transportation deficiencies in a justified manner. The purpose of the connector project is to improve safety, congestion, mobility, and travel time reliability for efficient movement of people, goods, and services for current and future travel demand. The need is to improve safety, reduce congestion, and increase opportunities for mobility. As I stated earlier, 2 alternatives and a no-action alternative were moved into the EIS phase. This on the screen here represents the H2 alternative. H2 is a new US20 alignment north of the airport going east and tying back into the existing US20 around 49th North. It features the following improvements: combined and reconfigured I-15 exit 118, also known as West Broadway Street, and I-15 exit 119, also known as Grandview Drive, to eliminate weaving conflicts. Widened I-15 and US20 from 4 lanes to 6 lanes. A new 115 exit 121 system interchange north of the airport with a west connection to North 26 West, which, as you can see here, is that connection right there off of the new US20 alignment. New interchanges on the new US20 alignment at North 5th West, which is right here, and a new interchange at East 49th North, which is what you see right here. Total costs of construction is estimated to be around $425 million. Total right-of-way cost is estimated to be around $103 million. I'm now going to play a fly-through video of the alternative H2 to give a better visual.
Just a note I'll add, it's kind of at a concept level. That's why you see the signs kind of just hanging out in the air, but it is kind of a concept level. It's not at a final design. It's just kind of a model to show what it would look like.
Thanks, Karen. Alternative E3 follows closely along the existing US-20 alignment and features the following improvements: a new collector distributor road and northbound on-ramp between exit 118 and relocated exit 119, which, as you can see, I probably should do a better job of explaining it. That's that blue line. That's the collector distributor road. That would be the new 119 exit. 118 stays as is. Widened I-15 and US20 from 4 lanes to 6 lanes. New flyover ramps from I-15 to US20 on bridges over Lindsay Boulevard, the Pioneer Canal, the Snake River, and Fremont Avenue before connecting to the existing US20. As you can see, these 2 green, those would be the flyovers before connecting back into the existing US20 here. Realignment of US20 slightly to the north, relocated exit 119 interchange north near Olympia Street, and the realignment of the US20 to the east. It reconfigures Science Center and Fremont Avenue interchange 308, which is what you see right here. Those are the existing off ramps. They'd be decommissioned, and that would be the new on-off ramps there. Total estimated construction costs is around $353 million, and total right-of-way costs are estimated to be around $75 million for the E3 alternative. I'm now going to play a fly-through of the E3 alternative as well. now we're to the next steps. There are 3 phases to completing an EIS study: the draft EIS, the final EIS, and then the record of decision, ROD for short. The draft EIS is anticipated to be submitted to the Federal Highway Administration for their review in the 1st of January. There may be a level of comment, revision, and backcheck prior to final acceptance of the draft doc. Upon acceptance, cooperating agencies will have an opportunity to review and concur with the proposed alternative. FHWA will publish the notice of availability, the 45-day comment period will start, and a public meeting will be held. Upon completion of the public meeting, we will move into the final EIS stage, where we will review all public and agency comments on the draft EIS, analyze them, and prepare responses. The draft EIS will be revised to correct errors, incorporate new information, and add any responses to comments forming the final EIS, FEIS for short. The FEIS is made public, and a notice of availability is published in the Federal Register. A waiting period of 30 days follows the FEIS publication, allowing for final public feedback. That leads us into the record of decision. The leading agency, which is FHWA, will make their final decision considering the FEIS analysis, public input, and other factors. The draft record of decision will be drafted detailing the chosen alternative and mitigation plans and reasons for the decision. After the waiting period, the record of decision will be signed, published in the Federal Register, and made publicly available, officially concluding the EIS process. The orange star on the screen represents where we currently are today. So as you can see, there's still some steps in the process. That concludes my presentation today. I want to thank you for being here tonight, and we will open up the rest of the time for a question and answer session.
Hold your hand up high. Okay. Linda?
So how many acres are you taking to make these interchanges? Is it farmland, and is it being obtained by eminent domain?
Great question. We didn't come tonight with a lot of the details because those are in the draft EIS, and those will be published right to the public all at the same time. So there are different ownerships of property that the footprint sits on. So not all of it is farmland, not all of it is private property. Some of it is City of Idaho Falls. So there's different property owners, and then. Sometimes we have willing sellers, or if it's, another public agency, we can sometimes do trade of property, but no, we don't anticipate having to use the word take, but we acquire property. We don't plan to acquire property by eminent domain if we don't have to. That is a last resort, and, we really do try every effort to come to some kind of settlement with property owners before acquiring their property for a project.
That acquisition is at fair market value too. Let that be noted. It's not, there's no underselling or, overselling either for that matter. And it is very, very rare that eminent domain has ever had to be actually executed in the state of Idaho in general.
I thought the models were really good. Some of that I was trying to figure out reference points to see where these roads went. It was hard to really see that. On the first example of exit 121 that cuts across, I think it goes over Hatch Pit in that direction. Is there an exit off that section to 5th West? There is? So my question then gets to be, who's going to take care of all that road on 5th West, because it's going to be so busy with all the houses that are being built along there? Because I live right at 65th North, and there's more. Rockwell's putting up 300 homes up there. Does somebody consider that as part of your EIS?
So I think what you're asking is who off of the system. So there is an interchange, yes, at 5th West. And we have coordinated with city and county. They know of the improvements, and they also know of the growth, right? They have their long-range transportation plan. They have their land use. They know kind of how their county and city are going to develop out. And we feel like a lot of the traffic numbers that we've used in our analysis have come kind of from what they are projecting. So we feel like it's a coordination, but there will be, right, there's more people coming, there is a need for more transportation infrastructure, and yes. So we feel like as we've coordinated, we understand that there will be more roadway that will have to be plowed in the wintertime, more roadway that will have to be maintained, paved on a regular basis.
Again, lastly, if everything goes well with UIS and all that, when do you think a decision will be made, and when do you think construction would start? Any feel for that? Like 5 years, 10 years, 2 years?
I'll take a bite at it, and Karen, correct me if I'm wrong. As far as the anticipated finish of the EIS phase, we anticipate from the draft to the final to the record of decision being completed in springtime of 2027. As far as construction goes, construction's not going to start in June of 27. It is actually not currently funded right now, but having an EIS completed opens up opportunity for us to go pursue certain grants, et cetera, to obtain that funding. But I want to make it clear that just because we get through the EIS phase, we're not starting construction. It could take years before we get that project funded. As you could see in my presentation, it's, you're $500,000 in construction right away. So
I guess that wasn't my last one. This will be your last one, Doug. On the website, I was trying to find something about that. Will you put up a diagram on a website of the two options we could see, how the interchange might work and things like that?
Those two overview shots that I have, they're on our website. You should be able to click and it'll pull that up, and there's also the fly-through links, so you can open that overview and watch the fly-through, and it should give you a good idea. But I'd be happy to send you the link as well if that makes it easier.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
That website will very soon be much better, just so you know.
So he mentioned those fly-throughs. How accurate are they? And I say that because I live on 49th North, and I've seen various plans that go through my home. So, one, how accurate are they? And then the other question is, if you do happen to purchase somebody's home, how much advance notice do you give a homeowner if you're going to be going through their home?
Right. I think once we are putting lines on a piece of paper, people are starting to become aware. You're very aware of this project. You're aware of what may be coming your direction, right? And I think that's probably the biggest impact is to somebody's personal life and where they live and how they'll go through that process. So to answer the part of how detailed are these, they don't have necessarily any engineering behind them. So a lot of the times we put, like I said, these are kind of a concept station. So if your kids play Minecraft, right, there's like blocks. It's more of a blocky, here's a roadway. If it was a 3-lane, if it had a 6-to-1 slope on it, this is kind of the footprint that it would have. And it would generally go in this direction. When we get to a design phase, right after we've gotten through the environmental, then Federal Highways gives us the permission to do some of that final design detailing, and that will have alignments, and it'll be much more precise. And that's when we can then do what we call legal descriptions, and the property stuff then comes from there, that level of detail, because you want to know, is it 2.3 acres or is it 2.4 acres that needs to be acquired. So that level of detail doesn't come until we're in that design phase, and that's when we would then be approaching property owners to acquire some of that property. We have had the idea. We have done this on one other project in our district, and got permission to do some early acquisition of property. There is in the CFRs, the Code of Federal Regulations for FHWA, that you can go forward with some early acquisition. There's some hardships, there's some corridor preservation, and there's like 3 different reasons that we can go forward with some early acquisition. So we could I mean, I tell you this, that it could be, several years down the road when we're in the design phase, but we can also do some early acquisition, and that could happen even before the EIS is fully completed. We just can't go out and start moving dirt on the ground. It's just acquiring property to, again, preserve kind of the corridor.
That's in the name of trying to save taxpayer money as well, obviously. If we can see that if we don't buy this property that we could potentially need, then we're going to end up paying more for it eventually. So that's really a matter of trying to be judicious with the budget that we will eventually hopefully have.
So you mentioned applying for grants. Are these grants at the federal level that you're talking about?
Usually there's a couple of federal grants out there right now. There's a build grant, a raise grant that are specific to large infrastructure type projects. There was a project a few years ago in Boise that received like a $90 million grant for funding the construction.
Okay, so there isn't any state grant, like the state isn't paying for it then?
Most of our larger projects are federally funded in that there's a match. So there's, the majority of it is federally funded, and then the state funds are a match, like it's 7% of the total project cost. So there are still state funds on the project, but kind of a smaller portion compared to federal money.
The other thing is, I'm not quite clear on what the criteria will be used to decide which alternative will be implemented, the E3 or the H2. How do you decide which one you're going to move forward with?
Right. So Jake had on the presentation kind of 12 different categories, right? So amongst those categories, there's cultural, historical, visual, noise. Anyway, we do some detailed analysis and we come up and we find out what the impacts in each of those categories. So including socioeconomic or the farmland impact or the property acquisition. So we try to get like the whole big picture. And then it's, is there an alternative that has the least amount of impacts to the resources, as well as provide the best mobility, the best safety, the best. So it's kind of a combination of asking a bunch of questions about each of the project alternatives in each of those categories. Kind of gets us to, and that's kind of what you'll see in the draft EIS, is you'll see all of these categories and the comparison between the two alternatives and how the decision was made based on the impacts to those resources.
Yeah, and do those all carry equal weight? I mean, how much weight will the will of the people carry, which we already know that most of the people wanted E3 rather than H2.
And we appreciate all the kind of the public input. We are great. We would welcome all of that. Thanks.
I've got a question. This has been going on for 5 years or more, and we live out on 5th West, and there's not a real estate agent that would give you a fair market value right now for our property. So our hands are tied, and we keep hearing the same story over and over for the last 5 years. Why? Why aren't we getting it done? Well, no, now wait a minute on funding. I read that here, a year ago, Brenda? Yeah, they had money set aside. I mean, that was on the website. I wish I could find it.
No.
This is now they don't have the funding. Or whatever.
So that was a little misleading in that there was 30 million identified for I-15 US20 Connector, and that was a portion of the right-of-way that, so when Jake goes through the numbers that it was just estimated for the right-of-way is close to 100 million, and construction is closer to the range between 300 and 400 million dollars.
Our question is, can you hear me? Our question is, like we've said, this has been going on for over 5 years. over 5 years that we've been held hostage by the state and the feds to come up with an answer to our problem that we know we have to have the solution, but why? On that display you showed there, you're in number 2 section, and there's 3 or 4 more to go. It's been 5 years. I've talked to Jake. I've talked to the other guy before poor old Jake had to take over. And it's pathetic that it's been this long. Nobody will do anything. Nobody will tell us, okay, this is where it's going to be, so we can make our plans. We can't plan on anything. We've gone ahead and started building a house. Now, what are we supposed to do? Because we can't sell what we've got. Maybe 5 years from now, maybe 10 years from now, you'll start building something. Can't you tell us when? When?
For what it's worth, we would really, really like it if we could.
I'm sure you would.
Know that, you know.
I'm
and
sure you would,
we'd
but
like
I
it
want to
if
know
the
why
process was more
5
efficient
years.
as well.
Why 5 years? Really? I know it's the federal government, but really.
So part of that was the Pell. So the first time that you guys started seeing the project, if it was in 2018, we went through that. So if we started with 14 alternatives, you don't want to have to take all 14 alternatives into the EIS. So it took a few years to narrow that down from the
You've already narrowed it down to 3 of them. Why can't we have an answer? Is it H2 or is it the one over on Grandview? Period.
Right. So Federal Highways likes us to wait. They need to concur. And that's what we're just about to send the document to them to be able to get their concurrence.
Would it help if we call our congressman?
Sure, I would go right ahead.
A big part
Great.
of all of that is the administrative changes of the last 8 years. That is absolutely part of it, because each different executive at the top of the chain, the big top of the chain, right? They all have different priorities, different environmental priorities that convolute the environmental process or that try to simplify it. But in the process of trying to simplify it, a lot of people are left without very clear direction, which doesn't necessarily make anything more efficient, even though the goal for it to be was there. So the administrative changes greatly affect anything we do that has federal money attached, which this definitely is. And let it be noted there again, this is the highest level of environmental classification a project can have because of its enormity. So we don't have a choice but to look into all those things, and the federal administrative changes, the fact that it is very federally involved.
So is this not going to happen
part
until
is-
2027? Jake, you told me spring of 26, you guys would probably have it figured out. Everybody would sign. It was going to be okay. And by September, we were going to know whether we were going to have a house built or stand there waiting for somebody to buy our property. So is it 26, 27, or 30?
I wish I had a clear answer for you. And I know we talked in great detail on a lot of this stuff. To Sky's point, since I've been on the project in February, we've spent the last year, we'll say, revising the document due to the executive orders from the new president election. That's what we've done for the last year. Now we're to the point on a traffic operations analysis that we've gone back and forth, which is holding us up from finalizing the draft EIS. And that's why I'm saying we just had a meeting on it today. That's why I'm saying we're 1st of January we should submit. But every time we turn around, it seems like there's some delay or new thing from Federal Highways. I promise you, we are just as, like I said, I know I'm not daily affected. It's not my property that's being affected, but I'm in the shoes pushing to try to get it to the next phase, to get you guys some answers. So we are just as frustrated as you are, and I can promise you we're doing everything we can to get this moved along and get the answers that you guys are looking for.
Okay, so one of the analysis is noise. And I want to know when you're doing the noise analysis, because when it comes time for rush hour, it's noisy. And much more noisier than when it's not rush hour. And right now, you go out on my front door, you cannot have a conversation on my front door step. So I want to know what time of day you're doing these noise analyses, because it really truly needs to be at the worst versus the better. Our homes are an island. we're right there if you do the H2 thing. And that 50-mile-an-hour road that they're planning on putting in front of my house isn't going to be really wonderful. I'm not thrilled about it. But right now with US 20 the way it is, we can't go outside. So when are you doing the noise analysis?
The noise analysis for this project has actually been done. I don't know off the top of my head what times of days those were taken, but they are put into a model that shows like if there's an increase in the level of noise and how, and then there's a whole evaluation on the noise to see if there's noise barrier walls that are feasible to be able to put in or not.
Yeah, well, if it's been done at 2 in the morning, it's not fair to us as homeowners, so they really need to look at it at rush hour. And I know I'm being very facetious when I say 2 in the morning, but at the same time, we need to be fair to the homeowners through this.
Yes, I understand.
We are interested in making sure we get the most amount of traffic data as well. It's really only valuable to us if we, exactly like you're saying, do it during those peak times. Otherwise, you know, we can't hardly very well justify any design, any need for improvement, right? And if our goal is to have it be the most forward-facing, future-focused improvement possible, so we want to make sure we're getting the most amount of traffic at the peak times as well.
At what point in the process will they decide which option that they're going to go with? And we would really appreciate if your flyover videos would go on. We get right to the point where we're going across our property and then you don't show that part. So it'd be nice if we could see what was happening on that 49th North up to, because we're right next to Highway 20.
Like we said, we anticipate federal highways concurring with the preferred alternative after review of the draft EIS once we move into the 45-day comment period public hearing and into the final EIS phase. I also wanted to note, like we said, the flyovers, those are at 30% preliminary design, somewhere in there. There's nowhere near final. And as we get to the intermediate and final design, we'll have those kind of answers for you, but unfortunately we don't where we're at in the process.
It's of note that the time, the lack of efficiency that's involved in the draft is in part, is absolutely because it's so involved. All of those different analysis, the amount of time between draft, final, and record of decision phases is minimized so much. FHWA cares about what's going to be in this draft EIS, which is now very, very close to being released. So once they're able to review that, the amount of time for it to become final is it's so much more brief than the process that we've gone through to get to where the draft can be released. So you're not looking at the same amount of time we've already spent from here on out. You know, that's still vague, but it's of note.
And I think it's good to note, I mean, we don't intentionally not saying, well, it's scheduled to happen on July 3rd of 2026. We've put things on a schedule, and we could, you know, share a schedule. It's just, we end up having a wrinkle, and then people might be anticipating that coming out. So we generally say a time period. So if it's anticipated, like Jay kind of said, the time frames, it's anticipated in the spring of 26 or the summer. So we hope that we are taking this out to the public by the end of summer 26.
Right. So just to clarify then what that decision looks like, will we actually know where roads are going on both of these proposed plans?
You'll know as much as the detail is in these flyovers and lines on the paper. There is not the level of detail. Federal highways, if you look at the Code of Federal Registration, they actually limit the amount of design that can be done until what's called the recommended preferred alternative is concurred with them.
Okay, so they're going to select one of those and then go into final design phase.
Yeah, well, you have to get to that point yet before you can.
Yeah.
So you have
Which is tough because at that point we still don't know if a road's going through our home or not, right? So that's the difficulty for us to be able to get feedback, because there's a big difference between a road in front of my home versus through my home.
Right, right.
No, just a comment that probably if this had been implemented 100 years ago, there wouldn't be an Idaho Falls, there wouldn't be a New York, there'd be a Chicago. I mean, it's just incredible what you have to go through to do this. My understanding is E2 is, or is it H2? H2 is the preferred by the IDT. That's the one that they have put forward as the preferred route? Not that it would be approved, it might change, but isn't that what they're proposing?
ITD, yes, has published that we
Okay.
have a recommended preferred alternative, but Federal Highways is the lead agency, and they have to concur.
And they have to make the decision, yes. And then secondly, I've understood, and I know that this has been a long process, as has been mentioned before, but we have talked to several people at IDT and also contractors that were contemplating that the EIS was done last year, and that the preliminary and that the final would be done early this spring, and that they would be, ready to move forward, at least with the emergency funding, by sometime this summer. Now, is that still the way it is, or has it been delayed even further? Because you're showing it, only the second phase of the EIS, and I was told that was completed like August, September, and then they were going to final, but is that not correct?
That's not correct.
Okay.
We may have had the draft EIS to a point that we thought
The draft.
we would be sending it to Federal Highways last December, but then, like Sky had mentioned, there's new administration, a new president was elected, and there were a lot of things that he put in place as executive orders that then that document had to be changed. So
Changed for the good or changed for the worse?
changed.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide, are we going up or are we going down here? Where you feel like the changes were helpful?
I think some of the changes, yes, were helpful
Good.
and helped us fine tune. But sometimes when there's changes, there's not guidance, right? So sometimes they'll make a new rule, but they don't necessarily know how to implement the rule. So if we then put forward, well, here's our suggestion or here's our analysis, and they say that, well, that's not quite right, try again.
So that lengthens the
Yeah.
time and keeps pushing things back. Okay.
Part of that as well, it's of note, is that FHWA we used to work with, say 20 different people at FHWA. Now we work with 4. There are 4 people that have any involvement in our particular region that we are in meetings with, that are trying to guide us so that they can ultimately approve and concur with this document and this process. So their staffing situation as far as changes in government are concerned are an absolute factor as well.
I don't know if I speak for anybody else, but it seems to me like as more and more people find out about what's going on here, there's going to be a lot more pressure put on IDT. Everybody's wanting to know, what do we do? And it's costing some people a lot of money. It's becoming a really, a big problem.
Another question?
I sat on the review committee for the Idaho Connector project that we're talking about here, and was very appreciative of the opportunity that was given to the public to make input when they were closing down to 2 final alternatives that they were going to propose, in addition, of course, to the no action alternative. But I'd like to give a real kudo to the Idaho Transportation Department for the interim project that was put in. That was really well done. I think that was a really heads up opportunity to at least cut off some of the congestion that was taking place. But I think a lot of the public that hasn't been involved in this environmental process doesn't understand really. The whole purpose of it was, in theory, to give people the opportunity to comment and to really understand and to do the studies that are necessary. And most of the projects that I was involved in at the INL, because we didn't have all of the public ownership issues, were probably, most of them were at the environmental assessment level, or a step down from the EIS that this one has to go through. And even those would take a lot of times a year to get the EA approved. So an EIS being approved in 2 years, I think would be commendable if we're able to get there. That's just my input. Thank you.
That is so exciting to hear from someone who's been aware of the process from the beginning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've been in Ryan Day's office before a couple of different times trying to tease things out, and to the frustration of the people who are concerned about the schedule and dragging out. Government processes are intended to prevent fraud and abuse, not necessarily to be effective or efficient. The processes are laid out, you have to follow them, and there's not much that getting red and bulgy about it can change about that. I live on Pavero. This would be on like my backyard, so I have a concern. When somebody builds a home near Reed's Dairy and then complains about the smell, the dairy was there first. They went to the irritation. But when somebody builds a home in an area like mine and then the highway comes, I say, why can't we keep the highway noise where the highway noise already is? Looking at the aerial photographs of the construction of the Johns Hole Bridge in that area from 1963, except for a few homes that were north and west of there, homes like Hiatt, or streets like Hiatt and some of those, there was very little actual intrusion into existing residences. I mean, maybe $100 million difference in construction cost. I mean, what's that between friends? I'd rather see it spent on the more efficient and more effective and keeping the noise where the noise already is. And will there be another time when we have an open mic to express that, or a means to submit that as our preference? Because if not, I'll sell you my house. You can deal with the consequences of your choices instead of having me deal with the consequences of your choices. It seems more fair.
Right. So once we publish the draft EIS, so we have the permission, Federal Highways has concurred with the preferred alternative, that draft EIS then goes out. So then the public then has another chance to comment. And those comments are then considered still in part of the decision-making process. It's not like a done deal. We still welcome all those comments. If people are still interested in E3 as being the recommended alternative or where the construction happens, we want to hear the reasons why. And the more substance you have to your comments, instead of just being, hey, don't build it in my backyard. I'm just giving you an example. If you can put some substance to the type of comments that you provide, those are always more helpful to us.
First, just thank you for fielding all the tough questions. I know you're not in an easy position with this. I'm wondering if there's any kind of buffer built into this plan. We are on 49th, which would make sense for the actual road to be where the actual road is now, 49th. But when you've got houses right next to 49th, and ours is just one over from that, how much land will you be buying up to the side of this project, or are we going to possibly be living right next to a highway? Is there any kind of buffer built in?
So I don't know if you saw the details, or you can look at the website. Early in the process, there was the concern about the location of the highway next to the one development on the north. So we actually have moved it further south into the hatch pit to give a little bit more of that buffer zone for the noise. And we plan as part of the construction to put, a earth berm there to help, visually or help. I don't know that it will take care of any noise per se, because our model doesn't recommend that we put in earth berms for noise, but those were things that specifically like that location of where that alignment came through Hatch Pit was changed after we had received public comment.
And there again, trying to be judicious with the budget that we would eventually have, we don't necessarily buy property that's all of a sudden next to the road. We will buy the property where the road actually needs to be. That is, just a reality of the thing essentially as well. But we are going to do everything we can in this planning phase to try and do the least amount of harm that we can as a result of only buying up where the road will go.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to let you know the 49 North connector to Beaches Corner is going to be a 5-lane road. That goes right in front of 15 houses in that area. The US20 I-15 connector goes behind our property and makes us a residential island. We have now a 6-lane road behind us and a 5-lane road in front of us, an additional road to connect to the 5-lane road so we can get out to go. And that's where we are coming from. We are anticipating the best outcome, but we don't think the state is going to do us any favors. That was my own, I think we're going to get shafted because of money.
You brought up the 2026 connector, and that project, because of other priorities, it hasn't moved forward even to any kind of an evaluation, environmental review.
And I know that's part of the process that delays it. Okay.
Well, yeah, we haven't moved that project forward. It's
and
actually,
there's no funding for it, so
correct.
we understand that.
Yeah.
That one isn't one you need to lose any sleep over whatsoever in the future.
It starts at our property and goes east.
What I can't understand is why there isn't a frontage road along the 6-lane highway so that you don't island us on 49th North and put a 5-lane road. I mean, it just compounds upon compounds upon compounds the noise and the issues we see.
Okay, yeah, we can look at it. I'm not 100% aware of spot locations, but we can look at it.
Okay, did you hear what she said? Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay.
Just one quick question. So who is the final decision maker? The people, the names of the people that make the final decision as far as which of these are going to pick?
We'll have them back. And
We don't have names of the individuals, but FHWA, Federal Highways, headquarters in Washington, D.C., they will be the final say.
So a group of people vote?
No. So to say that there's a name, so Federal Highways, there's several reviews. They have the division office that's in Boise, and we have the area engineer that is our representative. He will review the document, but he has subject matter experts that look at specific categories. Like if it's visual or noise, he doesn't necessarily have the expertise in that category, so he will include others to make sure that we've done the evaluation correctly to say, okay, what are the impacts? Have we considered everything? Do we have a mitigation plan for places where the impacts are at a certain level. Like if we talk about cultural resources, is it an adverse effect to a cultural resource, that then there has to be a mitigation plan. So when you ask the question, we're not trying to not tell you a name, but there are several players. So we could give you a list of 20 people that, you know, Federal Highways has at the table right now talking to us about the different analyses that we're doing and who's reviewing them. This project was identified as what's called a prior concurrence. So when we say that Federal Highways DC, so Washington DC, there is a group of Federal Highways group of subject matter experts that will also be reviewing the document, make sure that it has, that we've done our analysis correctly, that we're not, if there's something that we've missed, we're not mitigating for, we haven't properly evaluated the effects of what a roadway would cause to people, the environment.
Yeah, so I get all that. Like, I understand there's a lot of people involved in this, but at some point in time, someone is going to rubber stamp this.
Yep.
Is it a body and someone within that says, we're going with that? I would like to know who's the person that says, we're picking that.
So right now, the division administrator for Federal Highways in Idaho, they've combined with Montana. So the people that will actually sign the document is the division administrator from Federal Highways and our district engineer. Okay. Those are the two signatories on the document.
And our only way to influence that decision is speaking through you. You're our voice to them.
Correct, or the public meetings really are the place that we take all of those comments, and part of that process, we address everyone's comment. So if you've said, you know, the same comments that you provide today in a public meeting, those will then even be part of the record that you've come to a public meeting, you've provided this comment, and here is our response, or here is, hey, we decided to change this because of your comment, or because of this, then we needed to consider this, and now we'll change because of that.
Okay, and how do you go about notifying the public of those public meetings?
There is an extensive amount of due diligence that comes to public meetings. Part of those are federally regulated. We don't just get to choose what we feel like doing in the name of promotion, but we are told this is the extent you will go through. I can tell you on this project, no holds have been barred when it comes to trying to get people aware of those meetings. We even scoped to pay for radio advertising type of thing, which never happens in a project. So between newspaper ads, radio ads, online ads, social media posting, news releases, feature articles, all of those different things and more, as well as canvassing of flyers to hang on. And all of that is very well documented in our communications and public involvement plans.
Okay, because to my knowledge, I have never received a flyer about this to my home. My home has never received a flyer talking about this.
So we'd love to get your name and address and make sure, because we even do what's called a mail drop. So there was 13,000 postcards sent out specifically on the last public meeting. So if there are people that are not getting those, yeah, we would love to get your information and be able to send them.
49th North, we're not getting them.
Everybody on 49th.
All of 49th. Yeah. Perfect. We'll make sure that Jake delivers them personally.
We absolutely
if you
will
want,
bear
I will
that.
do that. Yep, I will.
He'll pawn it off on me. That's what'll happen.
And one thing I'll do if I can work with these guys is, you know, we'll keep in touch with them and whatnot, and I'll do what I can to make sure that, you know, I can announce it out to do these things, and we'll help as much as possible, you know, to inform them. It is have to say it is hard getting everybody to aware of what's going on, and so that's part of the reason why we did this tonight and everything, was just to get things going so that people can understand. So we will help. Pardon? Thank you. Are there any other questions? Oh.
So we're in a situation, and it sounds like we're not the only ones, because I heard another comment tonight, but we've determined that based on this road going through, and we already had somewhat planned it, but we've determined we're going to build elsewhere. Meanwhile, we have a property that we can't sell. So is there by chance, or is there a possibility you guys could create a list of people that are, you know, in our situation where they've had to move because of a job change. They've had to do something, and they physically cannot change their home. That's what this, this process taking so long is really affecting some people a lot more than others. Is there a list by chance that we could get on that just says, we are highly affected by this and we want to, come to a conclusion and settle as quickly as possible?
Yes, we have started a list of those that we believe are good candidates or the candidates for those early acquisitions to help alleviate some of those concerns specifically. If in my career at ITD, that is my least favorite thing, is seeing the impacts to the people personally and how long the process takes and how much your lives are affected. It really is my least favorite thing.
Any other questions? Let's give them a big hand. And I'll say this. This is bureaucracy in action. Okay? It's not these folks' fault. Okay? I used to work at the Idaho National Laboratory like another guy did there, and an EIS took years. Years and years. And it's the bureaucracy, but the comments were made, contact your congressman, contact these folks are the people that are actually trying to do the work. They're trying to get things done. And so, again, let's don't shoot the messenger. Let's be nice to the messenger and appreciate that they're trying to push this rope somewhere. Okay? And so this is going to impact a lot of people. And I think the message here from at least this group here is at least you get back to your superiors and the people like that and whom it is we need decisions. I heard earlier, there are people that their land value in their own mind is worth nothing right now. Because nobody knows. And so it is impacting and in my mind, to cause that impact to last for years, a decade, is improper. And so decisions do have to be made, and we do need to get the bureaucracy to make some things happen. And so, with that, again, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming, and if you'll give me I'll get the website that they were talking about, and I'll send it out today or tomorrow or something, so that everybody knows what to go look at, and we can keep track of it. And I'll keep in touch with them, and so that we can at least try to bring awareness to this, get people to understand. This is recorded. I think they did a great job. They're right in the very preliminary stages of this whole thing, and it's a bear to try to deal with. But be patient with these guys. Be a little bit less patient with their superiors, and we'll go from there. So, again, with that, folks, I'm going to say, we're on Rumble. A lot of people don't know. These guys didn't know what Rumble was. Who knows what Rumble is? Well, most of us do. Rumble is a platform that is similar to YouTube. Okay? Stand Up for Idaho does have a YouTube channel also, and so you can find us there, and we will post this on here. Why do I have Rumble? Well, when Stand Up for Idaho first started, it was in the midst of COVID and election irregularities and all this type of stuff, and we used to have politicians come and talk about it. And if you made one comment negative about COVID or vaccines or anything, or election irregularities, that was a no-no on YouTube. And they would take us down. And so we got taken down several times because I had a politician say, well, I believe this and that. Well, you can't say that. So that's why we ultimately ended up at Rumble. Okay, but my point being is we live stream and record this. You can take and get our chat, go and find tonight's meeting, pass around, send it to people and whatnot. This will give people at least a beginning understanding of what's going on, where in the process we are, and try to make some things happen. And so with that, I'm going to let everybody go. Merry Christmas. Have a great New Year's, and come back on the 7th and, listen to our corners. And the one thing I'd like to encourage, the only way you can really make yourself heard, your voice heard, is to come here and be here in person. Okay, and I think that's very important. Thank you, everybody. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Take care.